Okay. How you doing? Good. This is the best spot. So I don't This guy has no. No. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
All righty. If everybody can find a seat or a place to where you can see, we're going to leave the slideshow on. As you can see, my parents lived a lot of life. We're here to celebrate. This is my sister Joy. Please everybody welcome her. So what we thought would be fitting today is we've got just a few people here that we want to come up and say a few things. Of course, there's lots of stories, both my mom, my dad, and a lot of the stories you can see. So Joy, whole family's here from Spain, California, Washington, Colorado, all over the place, and just we want this morning to those of you that are here for your condolences for them that knew them, that we can do that. So we're going to celebrate some life. Joy, you want to say something?
Yes, well, I think we're going to be, a few people are telling these stories, but you guys probably have some stories out there, and we won't get opportunity for that, but we have both a website, a Facebook page, that you have a story about them, we want to hear it. And my dad used a lot of his words out when he was out and about, golfing, working, and often I never heard those stories. So if you have some stories, I really would like to hear them. So we really appreciate that. So, and thank you all for being here.
Just on that, as the last few days, we started finding out that he would tell certain stories to certain people that we never heard. So anyway, that'll be fun. So I'd like to bring up first Mayor Kent Quinn. Would you please come up here?
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, you probably never heard the story about him being mayor for the day. I know I talked to you the other day, and you said, "Hey, we ran across this stuff about mayor for the day." So he said, "You know about that?" I said, "Oh yeah, I know about that." I did. So they had an auction here for the Ocala Symphony right in this room, and so he bid on it. I wasn't there that night, but I got a letter from Pamela Claro who said, "Hey, the winner of the auction for mayor for the day was Jack Parelli. So you'll like him, he's a great guy, and here's his contact information." So I called him, and by the way, he paid $1,500 to do it. So I called him, and we met, and he goes, "Look," he said, "I just don't want to hang out with you, I want to work." He said, we're going to work, we're going to solve problems." And we did. And I always said, we left at about City Hall about 7 o'clock that night. It was like, "Are we done yet?" It was perfect. No, he said, "I want to get my money's worth." And, but that's how we met, and from there, he would invite me to all these golf tournaments that he and Donnie Harrison would do, and, raise money for the vets, and, a variety of different things. But, one of the things he was, and when I say this, he was too kind. But every time I saw him, the last time I saw him was right here in the lobby, because there's the best man in the world right there, Mr. Parelli, and we would talk. But no, we're going to miss him and miss seeing him. And we truly lost, two of the best people in the world when we lost your mom and dad. So thank you for letting me just say a few words, and thank all of y'all for being here today to honor Jack and Doris.
I would like Mr. Don Duran to come up here, and Don is somebody that we call him the muscle whisperer, and works on horses and people. And my mom and dad were very skeptical of anything with chiropractics or muscles or massage or anything like that. And so I talked him into going over to see Don, and I let Don.
Morning. Don Doran here. I do body work on humans, sports massage work. And a mutual friend had recommended to do some work with Doris. And Jack, of course, came along. Now, Jack wasn't not too sure about that stuff. So working with Doris, And Jack did not take his eyes off of me. His eyes was on anything doing on there. You're watching on this. We watched, and this is about an hour and a half. Doing the work, got some good relief and everything else. He goes, okay, okay, it's good minute. You might be okay. You might be okay. I'm not sure about it, but it might be okay. So then we started talking. And then we had a number of things together, one of them being veterans. And that, of course, always turns around to whiskey and that type of scenario, and all like Crown Royal. And I was like, oh, okay, like that. Very good. Well, see you next week. We had to set up another appointment. So I made sure I went out and got a bottle of Crown Royal. Now, this is highly unusual in clients that I don't drink with my clients and stuff while I'm doing work. But in this case, absolutely. So we finished that next session. And the other thing was like, okay, Jack was settling down and he didn't have to keep his eye on every move I made. And so Doris and I could do our work, but I had to do something to entertain Jack because he wouldn't sit for an hour. So it's like, okay, what videos do I have that I can put up on there? Talking premium. I was just like, one of the things we both loved was Louis Prima. So I had to think about Louis Prima, put that on there, put it out of the box. I love that and stuff. Finished working with Doris, and we come across, and it was like, hey, that was great. I really enjoyed watching that. We had a good. And so the thing was to him like this, and it always was us, and then he'd come back and I bring out the Crown Royal, and we pour a couple, and then myself and Lisa and Doris and Jack, we'd sit and we'd just talk. And that's how we became very close friends. Because we talk about everything. We talk about the fights, we talk about Ocala, we talk about golfing, we talk about the veteran stuff, we talk about everything, what Doris did, what Jack did, and they became part of our lives. And with that, I think that's one of the most important things in our lives, at least what I always think, is what you read and also the individuals that you interact with throughout your life. They're really making an impact on you. And Jack and Doris did make huge impacts in a short period of time with both myself and my wife. And with that, when you have that type of effort and that strikes you that way, you carry that through your whole life. And when you do that, you'll always think about the stories, you think about them, and they live on. And that's the way we feel in our heart. And we really love both of them. Thanks for letting us talk.
Of course, they were in their golden years. My mom was 85, my dad's 88. Our dad, mom. She was my mom. Didn't we have the same? Of course, one of the things, they moved here, I don't know, 13 years or something like that ago. It was kind of interesting how it happened. I told my dad about this nice golf course, and my dad's like, yeah, he golfed everywhere, Pebble Beach and all those places. And he came over here, and I hadn't golfed at that time because he bought a horse when he was 76, and he started coming over and playing with the horse every day, the Palomino that you saw up there. And so I said, well, if he's going to play with the horse, I'm going to do something he does, play golf. And that's how it kind of got started. We came over here and got in by hook and crook because we came over with just jeans and cowboy hats on, and they were kind of like, yeah. So we went and got mom, turned around, came back, and my dad we drove around in my East with Lockie light. And mom said, I want that one with the tree. She built that special tree that's in the thing. So he says to Dan Hershey, okay, we'll take it. He goes, well, Mr. Parelli, you gotta get a credit check. My dad said, F you, filled in the words. He said, Doris, write the check. So one of the things that it was the third lot that we fought here. And one of the things that my mom really enjoyed was the Golden Girls. Raise your hand if you're here at some of the Golden Girls. And so, Jackie, would you come up here? I asked Jackie to come visit with us. one of the greatest pleasures of my life was that Jackie's granddaughter, Peyton, came over to take lessons and help with the horse. And my mom came over the last week or so, every day, and would sit there in the golf cart and watch for a couple hours. And so we all got to know each other. And so,
Yeah, and Doris would always say she's doing it for you.
yeah.
So, Rich, can you go up too, please? Just in case I lose it. So Doris is one of my best friends, even though we only met like 8 years ago. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And she was the most kind, thoughtful, generous, loving to others. I mean, she always wanted to help you and be with you. And she was also very religious, and she followed God's footsteps. And we would have discussions about religion also. I first met Doris on the golf course. It was one of our golf clinics, and we would play golf together. Neither one of us were very good. And so she had asked me, Marion runs this tradition every year, the ladies super golf, I guess, what is it, tradition type thing? Or it's like a big fundraiser, and she does it every year. And Doris asked me to join her, to be on her team. I'm like, why would you want me on your team? I'm not a very good golfer. She says, well, last year I was in last. I just don't want to be coming last again. Luckily, we didn't come in last. So we didn't come in first either, but we were really happy and we had fun. And so when we were playing golf, that's when we discovered we were neighbors. We didn't, we became close that way. We also had dinners together, and Doris would cook her homemade pizza and her eggplant farm. And I would take those recipes to Virginia, and I would have a party. And I would tell them that, like, one of my best friends told me how to do this. And so every time I came back, I'm like, what recipe are you going to give me next? Because she was a good cook too. I want to speak for all the women here that knew Doris. She was in the book club. She played golf. She was in the Golden Girls. I mean, she was very involved. And I've been talking to people all week, and there's a million stories about how wonderful she was, how everybody appreciated her. And we just want to let you know that all us girls are going to miss her. She was a great woman, and we'll all miss her. I don't know what else to say. Doris was always so proud of her family. She always talked about them. Many heartwarming stories. One of her favorites was when Pat performed in front of the Queen of England. And I don't know if she told me the other day that when you were there performing, you wanted to bring the mom, and the Queen said no. And you said, then I'm not going to perform. Is that true? Okay. So anyway, that shows you how close the family is. She talked about all her children and all her grandkids and her grandkids. And she was looking forward to going back to California in a couple of weeks after Jack had his last vaccination, I guess. Anyway, we would walk every morning. It was Doris and I and Charlotte sometimes. And even though Doris wasn't in the best of health, her back hurt, and she would walk slowly, and then she would release her back by bending over. She was the strongest woman I know. She just never gave up. Didn't make any difference. And she wasn't, we talked about it, she wasn't in pain. She could sit down, it wasn't hurting her, but she had throat problems, she couldn't swallow very well. And we would just talk about how glad we were both still here. That was kind of our conversations. And so she was a very strong person, and I admire her. I hope I have the strength that she does, but on her age. She was also kind to get we talked about granddaughter Peyton, she's only 12, got involved with the natural horsemanship program with her new horse. And she would say, Pat is doing it for me. And we will never forget that. Peyton will never forget it, and I'll never forget that. I want to say a little bit about Jack. Maybe Rich will tell the story. I know we've talked a lot about Jack, but he was one of the strongest men I've ever met. He was 88 years old, young, played 18 holes of golf every morning before he trained the horses. And he had some energy. He even worked with my granddaughter last year when she came with one of the foals for 3 days. He did take Rich one time. My husband's not really a horse person, he's the golfer. But he did take Rich, what was it, about 3 years ago to work with one of the foals. And I would say to Jack, aren't you going to invite him again? And Jack says, no, he has to call me, and then I'll take him, or something like that. But anyway, he called me the Energizer Bunny, and he called my husband, King Richard. When I went to New Zealand last year with the Wild Women Adventure, and I left Rich for a month, Jack would call him up, and they would have a conversation. You want to tell him? Just tell him the cute little story.
Okay, here's my story that comes to mind when I think of Jack Parelli. As Jackie mentioned, she deserted me for a month. Can you imagine that? I said, that's a lot of nerve. But when I think of Jack, I think of he goes out and plays 18 holes of golf every day, and then he goes up and work at Pat's facility, training. And he's 88, and I'm a lot younger, going to be 76. I figure, well, if he can do it, I can do it. That's what kept me going. Because usually after 18 holes of golf, I got to go in and lay down for a while or something. But while Jackie was gone, he and Jack and Doris would call me up, Rich, let's go out to the American Legion Club, or let's, they invited me to quite a few things. But then he'd come over to the house, he'd stop by the house. I don't think he knocked on the door. I think he just came in. I've never seen so much energy, enthusiasm, and hard work in anybody. But that was Jack, and he was more than welcome to my house anytime. But he goes, King Richard, where are you? Jack, right here. He said, everything okay? So I figured I'd kid around for a little bit. Jack, usually every morning I get up, I walk in the kitchen, I sit down in my same chair every day, and my breakfast comes out. But now when I walk out, nothing. He said, I'm going to fix you breakfast. You're going to have an Italian Parelli breakfast, and I'm going to cook it. You come up tomorrow morning. So he told me, and I believe him, he's got to go to a special place to get the Italian sausage. And believe me, they're big. They're bigger than this thing. And they were good, too. And then, so I go over there that morning. I didn't know what to expect. They got a frying pan this big. It takes about 2 or 3 burners, and he's got pepper. Hey, these are the best peppers, and this is the special onions, and this is the special garlic. Everything was enthusiasm. So we ate, and it was delicious, too. We ate breakfast for, I don't know, 2 hours or something, off and on, and then more coffee, and then bring rolls out, and then I think we went in and watched a boxing movie. He always talked to me about boxing. And, I just love him so much. He was such a great guy, and I look forward to seeing him, throughout each week, and hearing their stories, and it's just heartbreaking for me that that's not going to happen. But I'm so happy that they're together. When I called my son-in-law to tell him the news, he met Jack and Doris, of course. He said, well, I think of it that God loved them as a couple so much that he wanted them together coming into heaven. So That's my Jack story with enthusiasm.
Doris and Jack were so special to us. We miss them so much already. And I need to read a closing letter that I wrote to Doris. Doris, I'm so sorry I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to you last week. On the other hand, I am so thankful we spent the day together at the farm with family, friends, and horses. Just so you know, I miss you terribly. You're probably looking down at me and know that. Every morning I wake up, eat breakfast, and expect you to call and meet up with me for our walk together. I can't help but cry because I'll never see you again. Doris, I know you're happy in heaven with Jack, and what a blessing you are still both together. It gives me peace when I think about both of you that way. I know you are with God, and what can be better than that? Hopefully we will meet up someday. Miss and love you, Jackie.
I'm gonna let my sister Joy introduce the next two, kind of want to kind of go chronologically for people that knew them longest. And so Joy, please introduce our next.
Yeah, so most of you didn't know my father is a businessman. Daryl Burdick and his wife is here, and they knew my father. We were reading letters that he wrote to my mom in the Navy. And they're talking about how they owed the bank $30 and how that was going to be so, he's getting $5 a week, whatever. Anyway, he built his career to be a successful businessman and grew a team under him, Jack Parelli Associates. And so I asked a couple of them to just give us a video interview here that they're going to show up here.
Department, and I worked for Jack and Doris for about 25 years. Over the course of that time, I was often asked, what's it like to work for Jack Parelli? I can tell you, it was great, as long as you got your stuff done. You see, with Jack, you always knew where you stood, and I like that. There was a time when we were in an airplane, we were on our way to a meeting in Chicago. I was seated next to Jack, and I told Jack, I said, Jack, in many ways, you remind me of my own dad. He was in the military. He was a Marine, and that shaped who he was and a lot of the way he handled himself in business. And I asked Jack, what shaped you and what, made you the way you are and how you deal in business? Jack thought about it for a minute, and he told me, when I was a boy, he said, there was a bully that used to pick on me. And he said he talked to his dad about it, and his dad offered him some advice. He said, Jack, this is what you do. You find a great big stick. When that guy starts picking on you, you find an equalizer, and you just start going crazy. And you swing and shout and yell and go absolutely crazy. He said, from then on, it won't mess with you anymore. Well, Jack told me that's exactly what happened. He did that, and from then on, people would see him on the playground, and they'd say, there goes John Parelli. Don't mess with him. He's crazy. I saw that in a meeting full of suits with Jack. Nobody messed with him. It was amazing to be with Jack and Doris. They often felt like you were with somebody, you knew you were with somebody very special. Because they chose to spend a few minutes with you, you knew and you felt special as well. There was one time when I had a problem with a customer. I don't even remember what the circumstance was, but I called Jack and said, Jack, the factory's being stupid. This is what happened. He said, kid, don't worry about it. I got it handled. The next morning, I got a call from the president of the company and the national sales manager telling me, we got it. We're going to bend over backwards and we're going to take care of your customer. They said, we just need you to do us one favor. If you ever have a situation like this again, would you call us first and keep Jack out of it? The passion that he had and what drove him was something that I recognized over the years was really the secret to his success. You see, Jack always took care of people, whether it was his guys, his customers, or his factory. He knew that ultimately it was about people. Jack and Doris will be sorely missed.
Dean Sims. I wanted to say a few words of tribute on the saddest of occasions. Jack took a chance on me and brought me to California to work with him in 1980. I was just a very young, energetic man from Texas with very little experience. With Jack's support and encouragement, I was able to succeed. Jack showed me how things should be done. Jack showed me how to be a professional. I would not be where I am today without his help over the years. We worked together for 30 years. Jack was more than just a boss to me. Boss was an affectionate term that I used almost every time I spoke with him. But he was more than a partner. He was a friend, the big brother I've never had. We always looked forward to seeing Jack and Doris. We had many wonderful times together. I will miss very, very much the long talks Jack and I had, but most of all, we will miss their friendship and guidance. Jack and Doris were the truest of friends in every sense of the word, and will remain in our hearts and minds always.
My name is Katie, and I am Jack and Doris's third granddaughter. And Leah, their first.
I'm Brian, their second grandson.
I'm Amy, I don't know what number I am. What I love about my grandparents is that they did a lot and they experienced a lot of life. And for all of you who may not have known them as long as we have, I thought it would be really fun for us to do a little bit of show and tell and sharing. So we went around the house and picked up some items that sparked some memories, and we just wanted to go ahead and share those with you. So we're just going to pull items out at random and hopefully this makes sense. So we found this pillow in their house, and right away we all agreed that it reminded us of the parties that they used to throw. They were amazing hosts, and in particular as kids in California, they had a house right on the water with this big deck, and they would host really fun 4th of July parties. So we remembered that about them, and both in their own ways continued to host people all the time. And my grandpa, being way more extroverted, would have probably had somebody over to their house every single day. And my grandma, for one thing about COVID, I was thinking, she's going to be so lonely this year. So I called her up one day and she said, I'm actually living my best life right now because I'm just getting tired of my old age, and your grandpa can't have anybody over for her right now. So I don't have to host anybody on and surprise. But they were amazing hosts, and it wasn't maybe her personality to do that really big. It was for my grandpa, and she loved him so much that she knew that that would be really special and amazing. So I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a picture of my grandma water skiing, and she was one of the funnest grandmas you could ever have. She was 70 years old in this picture. She was amazing. She just joined in fun, and we were so grateful to have her. We had so many memories on the water with her. She took us skiing, both water skiing and snow skiing, and all of which she learned as an adult later on in her life, but then included us in that part and hosted us, and it was such a special thing to do. One of her, because she learned all of these sports as an adult, she was always very much, her nickname, Grandpa's nickname was Under Control Doris. So we had a lot of fun, but always safely. One of the things that she engraved in our memories was that when you turn on, before we could, she would bring the boat down, but before anybody could get on the boat, she had to turn it on, check the motor and turn it on, because we were not allowed to be on the boat because it might blow up. And so we have that ingrained in us, and later in life, when we got on other boats, we've been very concerned about getting on the boat before they started. Anyway, but she was amazing.
All right, so if everybody can see, it's a cigar box. These were given to us by Grandpa a lot, but they were always full of change. The box is not cigars. This was always filled with change when he would come to the house, and as a kid, that might as well have been a gold chest. And for me, that just represents my grandpa's generosity. I mean, he worked incredibly hard to build what he had, and he gave it away so freely. He knew the value of money, and he knew the value of making people happy. He genuinely, I saw him at his happiest when he was giving. That's what I want to remember, and that's who I want to be.
What to do about the change boxes too. He wouldn't just have one for us because there's a lot of grandkids. So he would store up his change. He'd come home every day after work, and he must have just emptied his pockets every day. And over a year, he would build up quite a collection. And there would be like 3 or 4 boxes, and then he'd hide ones and tens and $100 bills in the cash. And he would always make us guess before we counted the change how much it was going to be worth. And he would give us like a range. We all got to have so many guesses, and if we were within the range of like $50, we got to keep it. But otherwise, we weren't going to get to keep it. So we had to really strategically plan all our guesses with the exact amount of windows so that we would catch it on the high or low end, just in case. And then he was always tricky. So we'd look at the change and have to estimate, but then we never knew if there were going to be dollar bills in there too. I brought this. And it just represents to me, it's an iPhone case. And my grandma, a thing about her was that she just never stopped, really both of them, they never stopped learning. But this specifically with my grandma, she wanted to stay connected with us, and we didn't live close to her, and it was important that she got included. So we had her on a couple of different apps, WhatsApp, which is more of a texting app, and my sister lives abroad, so that allowed us to continue to text with each other, and she always called it "What's Up." I didn't quite know what it was called. And then we got her this last year really doing Marco Polo, which they're video messages back and forth, and you can record them on your own time and then watch them, so you don't all have to like FaceTime in at the same time, which helps with different time zones. And bless her heart, my grandma, she loved watching and she loved responding, but sometimes she would watch a Marco Polo, and then we don't know how, but she would push record after she'd watched one, but she'd just go set her phone down somewhere, and it would record 20 minutes of her ceiling fan. Or it would record about, 5 seconds of her nostrils. She'd be looking at something, and then somehow she knew to turn it off. Like, I'm thankful she figured that out, but she just left us sweet messages, and we still have our Marco Polo and WhatsApp to be able to go back and just hear her voice. And I'm just thankful that she was on Facebook. She was on, Leah found a password for a Twitter account. We didn't know she was on Twitter, but she was wanting to stay up with us so that she could continue to communicate. You probably all know what this is. It's most of you. For those of you who don't, it's a carrot stick. later in life, growing up, I only ever knew my grandpa as what I perceived as hating animals. Because if any animal dared to come onto his deck, he would spray them off. And stray cat or dog, it was not allowed in or near his house. But later in life, when he retired, he chose to take up working with horses. It was the greatest shock of my life. But I had the great privilege. Sorry. I'll tell you about that. Of getting to teach him. And he was actually one of the best students. I was really, really surprised. And it was just such a special time that I got to share my passion with him. And then he really took it and ran with it and did so much more than I ever thought. But at 76, he took up something completely new and out of his wheelbox, and he just went for it. And that just really inspires me.
I have some golf balls here. You might not know this, but my grandfather liked to golf. That's something he wanted to share with me too. Not that I was ever any good at it. In fact, the last time we went golfing, he got so frustrated with me. He said, "Brian, if you don't keep pulling your head up, I'm going to tie a string to your nose, put a hook on the other end, and if you pull your head up one more time, you won't." He never did follow through, and I'm still a terrible golfer. His passion for golf is and just pursuing something and getting better at something every day is just inspiring. Will be my memory.
Anecdote. Every morning, Grandpa would have his coffee with a little special something else added in. And he would always, that little special something always changed over the years, but he always wanted us to drink it and encouraged us by saying that it would grow hair on our butt.
So the obvious, this represents just, my grandpa was a boxer and he was a tough guy, and anybody who has been around him knows he can have a tough exterior. And I pray for those people that he had to call on the phone. As kids, we were never allowed to go in his office when he'd come home from work, because he'd come home and then continue on the phone with most of his clients and the companies that were providing furniture for his clients. And he was a fighter. He would fight on behalf of the people that he represented. He fought on behalf of anybody close to him that was really important to him. And we got to see a much more tender side of him come out as soon as my grandma experienced cancer. In 2000, she battled breast cancer, or throat cancer, a little higher. And but when I saw this, I thought right away, of course, my grandpa's a boxer, but I feel like it also really represented what a fighter my grandma was. She didn't give up, and she experienced a pretty, they brought her really all the way to the brink of death. Like, she just looked really bad, and they just put everything down. And then when she built back up again, she was willing to go through all of that for all of us. And my grandfather just fought for her, and he cared for her all growing up. We weren't ever allowed to go out of town with grandma unless grandpa was already out of town, because unlike Jackie there, he would never have allowed grandma to have deserted him like that. So that would not have flown with grandma or grandpa. So we got to go on trips with grandma, but only when grandpa was also out of town for his business. And the flip side of that, when my grandma went through cancer, he took care of everything for her and became her caregiver. And just what a fighter both of them were.
Okay, so this is an ice tray. What is the word for that? This is an ice tray, and
the memory that this brings up is Katie mentioned that when grandpa was away at market, my grandma would take us on trips, and she took us all over. And I, as a mother now, am just amazed that she would take us children traveling, sometimes by herself, sometimes my mom came, but what an incredible challenge that was. And so one year she took us to Washington DC, and it was raining and we had nothing to do. And so as children, we decided to start throwing ice out the window and trying to hit the umbrellas of the people below. And then the next day we thought it was really fun, so we tried again. Well, it wasn't raining that day. My grandma was napping, I think, because of how exhausting it would be to travel with young children. So we hear this knock on the door, and there was a long hallway, so you couldn't actually see the room. You could just see the person who answered the door. Grandma answers the door, and it was the hotel manager. And he's like, "Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I had reports of somebody throwing ice out the window, but I must have the wrong room." And my grandma's like, "Yes, you do." I accept your apology. Shut the door, but we just loved our grandparents so much. And we feel incredibly blessed to have people who loved us, invested in our children, and have given us such a legacy. And we feel so rich for having them in our lives.
This is the first grandson. And Caden's going to be 38 years old in a couple of weeks, even though I told him that he should follow my footsteps and take birthday control pills. But, and as you can tell, my dad kind of acted like he did. But can we just say something that we need to really keep everything short here?
I'll try. Well, first of all, my grandpa was not exactly known for being politically correct, and I don't think he gave a rat's. But he really didn't care what people thought about him. That didn't matter, and I got that same. I'm like an unfiltered cigarette. And it's like my dad always said, "What's the point of sugarcoating?" And I have to honestly say, the thing that I'm gonna miss most about Grandma, the food, the pizza, and most importantly, the hugs.
Well, for those of you who know, this is in the horse industry, people use whips. And my parents were extremes. And this is something they taught me, to become an extreme middle of the roadist. And using love, language, and leadership in equal doses. And so I came up with this idea of trying to teach people to not, because I found out with horse people, there's the carrot people that might say, go to the house and watch the baseball game and just give me some time and carrots and I'll get the horse in the trailer. And the other one would say, no, you go to the house, give me that stick and I'll get the horse in the trailer. And you both think you're wrong. You're right, you're both wrong. Because there's something in the middle. We got to the carrot stick. And I think that's what, when I think of my parents, that's how I kind of got more of that sort of an idea or philosophy to life. So my dad would get up every morning, be the first guy on the golf course, and he would come over and play with horses. He didn't think So he didn't let us have dogs or cats or anything when we were little. Couldn't have anything in the house, so I had to have my horses 7 miles away at my 4-H leaders. I had horses, cows, pigs, my dog. And at 76 years of age, when he retired, he was deathly afraid of because some of his friends had, when they retired, within a year or two, they passed. But he wanted to keep himself busy. He would not only come over and play with horses for 3 hours, and like you heard, dedicated, he learned the program, learned how to, he did amazing, he had the brain to train. Probably why he was such a great salesperson. But he would then oftentimes go help volunteer to feed homeless veterans. So he kept himself really busy and lots of wonderful things. I think the thing that really, as we started looking through pictures and stuff this week, could see what handsome couple they were, how elegant they were. He was Catholic and my mom was Protestant, and I found out about a year ago at a church service I went to in Texas that I never thought of it, but the Protestant meant to protest against the Catholics. Yeah. And that made sense why the Irish people fight and all this kind of stuff. And that was a big thing for them, for him to be Catholic, for him to go against, his mother barely spoke English. And I mean, very Catholic. And anyway, so they came up with a solution, which was to go to a non-denominational church called the Neighborhood Church. That's where they met. That's where we were raised in Oakland, California. I was told I was born in Oakland, California, so I could be near my mother. But that's where we first were raised. And I wrote in my book, Raise Your Hand If You Love Horses. I put the thing in there and said, my success is all my parents' fault, because they gave me a great foundation. They provided everything, and there wasn't money in the house. And I had 2 horses, and it cost $10 a month to board the horse, $22 a ton, feed 3 tons a year. It would cost then $66 to feed a horse. They sat me down and said, one of them's got to go. I had 2 horses. Or you got to get a job or something. So I got a job. But really, they didn't. And I left home when I was just almost 17 and lived with my mom's parents, working for my grandpa. I had started a rodeo career. And shortly afterwards, I guess maybe just the food bill, things started to happen for him. And my dad's career really took off. But my mom and I talked a lot. My dad and I had to give him several severe listenings to. And I think what I realized is that the old saying, if you point your finger at somebody, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I think what he would do is sometimes be what we felt critical, but it was more of a critique of what it was that he saw in me that he didn't really, I'm not going to say approve of, but maybe he would wish I would do better. It was maybe something that he felt a little bit more about himself. But they were the greatest. They were known and loved here by many people in this community, and of course, worldwide. Every time we would do seminars, they would be there. I would introduce them every time. And of course, people around the world got to know them. And you heard this a little bit about the story about the Queen of England on her birthday. I was her birthday request to do a demonstration. And so I told, this is one of the best stories about my mom. My mom asked her if she was going to go, and she said yes. And the Queen first said no. I said, well, I'm not coming. In order to do this, we had to all have FBI checks. It was unbelievable security. And so she was the last one. So she got all the stuff that they were told. She was told, you cannot tell anyone. And my mom was the unrule breakingest person in the world, only preceded by my sister. And so my poor mom couldn't tell her sisters, couldn't tell anybody. And I mean, she almost exploded. And then she had to tell her she was going to England, by the way, going to Europe or something. And they're like, why? Well, So she sat behind the Queen of England. Her and Linda were there, and the Queen sat in a chair, but there's a big royal looking chair with Will Ferrish, who was the one who kind of got us through that. He was the ambassador for the United States to England, and they sat behind the Queen. And there was supposed to be 15. She always does it some kind of like 15 minutes is all, and then on they go. She ended up staying. She liked it so much. She ended up staying for almost 2 hours. And one of the jokes she liked best was when I said, just remember that horses were husbands in their last life. Because I was working with the paper problem horses. And my mom and Linda were sitting back there, and you could see her feet. They could see her feet doing this little dances because she was having so much fun and that sort of thing. So after it was over, she came down off and we were sitting right behind her, and there was all the teamsmen over here and about 20 people on this side. And so my mom got to actually meet her, and of course she says to my mom, "Wow, you must have really been good with horses." One last thing about my mom is both her mother and her older sister passed away when they were 65. And my mom got to live, there's 8,766 hours in a year, therefore 87,766 hours in a decade. So you got 2 more decades. She really had a belief that she would not, that was just the way it was. And she had this cancer scare and was at Kaiser Permanente, and they did the procedures and stuff like that. So she really, sometimes self-proclaiming prophecies can really come true. And I'm really glad my mom changed her belief. That there was a time she believed that was it. And she had some evidence to prove it. And she quit smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day when she was about 45. Somewhere there, about 45. I mean, and then my dad smoked cigars and stuff, but he quit, just like when they made a decision to dedicate themselves to something, they made a decision and there was no going back. So again, my success is all my parents' fault. Thank you.
You all have been so great to sit here for so long. Are you getting tired? No. Back for you guys standing up over there. There is some more chairs. I got a lot of things from my parents, but my daughter had asked me, what influenced you, what was influenced from both those parents. And for my dad, heard about the business, and I have some pens over there. His motto was, "You call, we haul." And I saw that motto on every pen, everything I saw, paper, and just, it was ingrained in me. And I heard him screaming in the other room at those factories, "You get this stuff here because my customer, I said it would be here, you're gonna be." Anyway, so I got that from him, and it's just part of me. And I have been part of sales right now, and I make sure the customer gets it. Whatever you have to do to make the customer happy, they're right, and you're gonna do it. And that's just ingrained in you. And for my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, and I came home in 2nd grade, and I said, "What do you do all day anyway? I am never going to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm going to have a career." But by the time I was a sophomore in college, maybe junior, it just dawned on me that's exactly what I want to do, because she was there for me. Every day I come home from school, and she was just there, and we had such a great relationship. But I just wanted to talk about, at the end of our lives, only 2 things really count. All of our lives, only 2 things really count, and that's to love God and love people. That's it. And my parents, both in their own ways, though imperfectly at times, did exactly that. And from their perspective in heaven right now, that's exactly what they would say to you. And the very fact that you're all here shows that they loved people. My mom showed with her kindness and gentle nature, and wherever she lived, she invested in people and her family. My dad showed his friendship, generosity, his teasing nature, his criticism even. But I've come to learn that meant love. He did love us. But this is what they believed. There is a God, and we're not him. That we sin, and our sin separates us from God. And just as there are laws of nature like gravity, there are also spiritual laws. And one law is that there is a penalty for sin, and that's death. They knew and both acknowledged that they were sinners. We believed God when he said that he sent his son Jesus into the world, not to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Jesus came, lived a perfect life, died a sinner's death on the cross, though he had no sin. The Bible says that he who had no sin became sin for us. He paid the penalty for our sin. And my comfort right now is knowing that they're both in heaven together right now in the arms of Jesus. We do not blame the man who hit them. He did all he could to avoid that. There's no bitterness. God has called them home, and we're thankful. It was instant, and they went together. But before they did, they both come to the understanding their need to be saved from their sin, and they both believed God when he said, if we confess our sin and believe in our heart that Jesus is Lord, you will be saved. And just a little bit about their story. Both my mom and dad said they believed and received Jesus as Lord and Savior together when they were very young, 17 and 20. We have love letters when he was in the Navy, a whole pile of them. They're so awesome. But both of them declaring their love for each other so much. It's crazy. Crazy love and their faith in Christ. However, after my dad returned from the service, life sent them some curveballs that began to drive a wedge between both of them and their relationship with God. They stopped attending church, but they insisted that we had to go. We could not play on Sundays unless we went to church. That actually was the greatest gift in my life. My mom's life became centered around the children. My dad's life was centered around his business and becoming successful. And by the time Pat and I had gotten married and had our own families, my mom was very lonely, and they had a hard relationship, even to the point of wanting to leave my dad. She shared her decision with me, telling me that she felt unfulfilled and lonely, and I understood her struggle. But as we closed the conversation, I just reminded her of what I had learned just a few years before that the only thing that will fulfill you here on this earth is God. She said it shot through her like a bullet. She knew what she had to do. She turned her life back to the Lord, went back to my dad, and they both decided to have one more try. She said that she went back to church, learned to study the Bible and pray. She began to gradually change from the inside out. And as she changed, my dad changed. It was a beautiful and amazing thing to do. And not that there weren't still rough times, but I was able to be in the front row to watch that. Because I heard her when she said she was going to leave him. So one of my most tenderest memories is when Katie talked about is how my dad took care of my mom. Because you heard how rough and tough and gruff he was. It was hard to be Jack Burrow's daughter. I mean, I thought he did not love me. I was probably 35 or something before I realized, oh, it's not that he couldn't love me, he just couldn't love me the way I thought I needed it. But he provided. He did love me. And then the way he protected her for COVID. He did all the errands. He did all the shopping. He did not let her go out of the house hardly. He finally started letting her walk again and go outside. And then for my dad, over the years, I noticed my dad started watching television preachers every night after everybody went to bed. And then last year, my dad had a virus that surrounded his heart that felt like a heart attack. And so my mom called me, and I thought, this is it, he's going to die. And so my biggest concern is I wanted to be where he was. I wanted him to be where I was in heaven. And I asked him, Dad, have you done business with God? And at that point, he just choked up and said, yes, I have. And I think that they would both save you now. You never know that within a moment, your life is going to be over. The Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die and after that to face judgment. And I know they were ready for that judgment day, not because of what they did, not because of how wonderful they were, but because they believed and received what Jesus did on the cross on their behalf. And they would implore you today to do business with God. Don't wait. Today is the day. So my parents really exemplified for me the importance of perseverance, faithfulness, and love. And I see how God restored their relationship with each other, with himself, and with us, their children. And I'm so, so thankful for the 67 years that they made it through. What a legacy. Lee and Pat are actually going to close this. We're almost ready to close with a song. And then Josh will be after that to close us.
I have to warn you, I've had people pay me to quit playing, so.
He's the one who actually gets paid.
You play by ear, but I play with fingers.
We're gonna just sing Amazing Grace, and you're welcome to join along. This song really sums up just that story of what my mom talked about and what my grandparents believed in, and why we have hope, and why, though this is such a sad and sudden and shocking experience, when we found out that we had lost them, the sadness is really for us, not getting to see and experience their company here now on earth, but it's followed by a real sweetness and a peace that so filled my heart because I know where they are and I know that I will see them again. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. We've been there 10,000 bright shining as the sun. We've nowhere safe to sing God's grace than when we first began. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Good morning, and I just want to thank everyone again on behalf of the family for being here as we celebrated these two lives today. Mr. Pat, Ms. Joy, I just want to thank you for trusting me to help you guys through the hardest time of your lives. But in meeting with them this past week, there was one thing that was the absolute most important to the two of them to this day. And it wasn't that we were coming to celebrate a funeral. It wasn't that we were coming to dote on the end. It was that we were coming together to celebrate two lives that touched many lives. And we were going to focus on the little piece in the center of the beginning and the end. And we felt that there was no better way to do that than one of my special poems that I like to read. And I urge you all, after the service is over with, to look up the words and think about how you can apply them in your lives, because I know that they fit the situation very well. And it ends it on a note that everyone in here can look up and can be happy. And we can leave here with smiles on our faces, knowing that we celebrated their lives and we're not doting on the fact that our hearts are broken and there's a big void. So it's a poem that's called The Dash. It says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the following day with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live, how we love, and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left, but right now that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel. Be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they said about how you spent your dash? Wow. If you never knew Jack and Doris, me included, after hearing these stories just today, they would be proud. They would be very proud. And I think that we all need to look up and we need to congratulate them that they are home and that they made a mark on everyone sitting in this room and many more worldwide. Congratulations, Jack and Doris.
We could just close with a prayer. So if you guys would close your eyes and a benediction and a prayer. Lord, just thank you. Thank you for all the little details. The fact that we have them for all that time. The fact that they it was an instant situation. Lord, we pray for Eric, the man who hit them. Lord, I pray that you would protect his mind from the terror of that moment and knowing he took 2 lives. Lord, we just lift him up to you, and I pray for healing and peace for him. Lord, I just pray for everyone in this room who we have a Jack and Doris hole in our heart. Lord, that you would just provide comfort and peace. And thank you that you are pleased to answer that prayer. And now the benediction. May Christ dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth of the love of Christ. Amen. Thank you for coming. Feel free to kneel around. Please eat more food. Please eat more food. We love you guys for coming. It meant so much. Thank you very much.